So, with the fact that we're supposedly getting a new medical ship on Friday, I figured it would be a heck of a time for us to play doctor. Medical gameplay, right? So, medical gameplay is something that at first you think, well, it's going to be something really simple, okay? Like, we heard a little bit about it on Monday. Oh, well, we've got the little injection right now, and that just represents a full heal. But in the future, that injection might get you up and get you going again, but you're still going to require actual physical repairs. So that kind of says the stimulants, the painkillers, will keep you going, but you're still going to have to go and get those bullet holes fixed, which sounds reasonable. You know, after a while, the stimulants might wear off and they may not do as well because you're still bleeding out or whatnot. So you have to go and seek a more permanent solution than just keep pumping yourself full of injections. Totally reasonable. And of course, medical gameplay is something that a lot of people have looked forward to. There's a big community of players out there who like the Cutlass Red, who like the Endeavor, though the Endeavor is something beyond the horizon, and the Cutlass Red, well, we could have had the Cutlass Red. You know, we could have had that ship along with the blue already, but I guess the Connie Phoenix was more important. But realistically, how should medical gameplay work? Let's say you're down on the surface of a planet and you get shot by either another player or NPC. So as your character fades out, passes out, instead of just simply being dead and gone, you flop down on the ground, and maybe there's a little emergency beacon in your suit that says, okay, your suit puts you into some kind of stasis where you're slowly degrading, but at a much slower rate, and it's just more or less keeping you like from becoming totally brain dead or whatever. And a little beacon activates, something that the Cutlass Red or the Endeavor can pick up, because once again, remember, the Cutlass Red has deep space scanners on it. It's supposed to have very powerful scanners, so they can pick that up and they go, okay, there's a wounded person down there. They go down, they check out the situation, maybe they scoop you up, and either you pay or your medical insurance pays, depends, I guess, on where you live, and you're covered. And they get you back up, you get all your stuff back, and you can go on about your business. Whereas if you don't want to wait for all of that, maybe you can just say, oh well, I'm just gonna take the rescue as writ. It happened, and I'm going to wake up at Grim Hex, or I'm going to wake up at Olisar, or wherever, and I'm just going to, call in insurance on my stuff and, go about my business as if nothing happened. Whereas your body stays out there, the beacon is still up, and a medical player can go and basically get the rescue on your body, make a little bit of money, and it just kind of takes it from there, right? So your gameplay isn't really interrupted, and they still have something that gives them gameplay, and they still get to go down, and maybe they have to do a little bit of tactical gameplay to get to your corpse. They have to judge if it's worth it or not. Who knows? It could be an interesting system. Now, of course, this revolves around the idea that you shouldn't be trapped within your body once your character dies, and this kind of plays into another thing. Let's say your character gets captured by a bounty hunter, either a player or NPC, and you're getting held prisoner like you're a pirate, and they put you in the back of the Avenger Stalker, and so now they've got your body. Are you now trapped there until they decide what to do with you? Now, of course, if you go on to the forums, you'll see some people making some very brave and altogether idiotic statements about, well, if a pirate gets captured, then you should be able to hold them prisoner, and they should have to go to prison, and then they should have to do all this stuff, and they should have this long road back to getting back into society, just to teach them a lesson. And then as a pirate you go, well, if people are doing that to my character, then shouldn't I just be able to hold their characters prisoner indefinitely in my ship and just not let them play, right? And then you see, oh yeah, so there is another side to that. That idea is actually dumb and it doesn't work. Oops. Oh well. But I think that, like, in terms of medical gameplay, and certainly in terms of, you know, criminal gameplay, when you die, you can have that choice to remain there, or you can just go eat the insurance cost and regenerate someplace else, and they still have, you know, that item, basically that corpse of yours. I know there's a few people who have expressed an interest in my corpse. I'm no judgments, but you know, they still have that, and they can still take that to do whatever mission to gain whatever reward they want. And the same should be true of medical gameplay. Let's say you die on the surface of a planet, even if you decide to eat the cost and just reappear at Olisar, Grimhex, wherever, that beacon and that body should still be there so that they can go, they can get the rescue, they can get the reward, and then maybe you as the player, even though you've taken kind of like the quick res way out, you may get some of your stuff shipped back to you at a later date. Like, oh, here's the gun you dropped, and here's some other stuff. You know, the medic retrieved all this stuff for you, so we're just returning it to you. You're like, oh, great, thanks. That sort of thing, right? I think that, you know, having players have that choice would be something that really amps up the medical gameplay and creates a real avenue for it beyond just waiting to see, oh, are there injured people here? Are there injured people there? No, this can kind of generate some dynamic missions where you don't really know what's going to happen. You get an alarm and you go, okay, let's go over there and fix it. Kind of almost like real life a little bit. You could generate missions sort of the same way an ambulance driver, he might have some regular scheduled runs, like transfer this patient from, you know, this hospital to that hospital, or take this patient from the emergency care center on this planet and then take them all the way to ArcCorp and put them in a, like an actual hospital, not a field hospital. That sort of thing. They could have those regularly scheduled missions. But then, once again, like an ambulance, you don't know what emergencies are going to pop up. You don't know what kind of things are going to happen. And so you would get these randomly generated missions that are possibly more rewarding that you can go out and fulfill and earn rewards. And if you retrieve the person's goods along with that, and maybe you get their gun or whatnot, you can return all of that with the body. That goes back to the player, and then you get maybe an added reward or added reputation based on that. I mean, it's a system that with the operating tables on the Cutlass Red, and obviously that are going to be in the Endeavor whenever that shows up, you know, you can have a system where you just put someone on the table and then boom, the table closes or the little arms come out and it kind of does all the surgical stuff. Or maybe you could make it a bit of a mini game like mining to a certain degree, where it involves a certain amount of skill and that gets it done quicker. Or maybe you can botch it and lose your reward because you screwed up the surgery, and instead of repairing the bullet holes, the patient ends up with a breast augmentation. I don't know, could be interesting. Now, of course, more in-depth medical gameplay is still a ways off, and you know, part of that is the ships aren't there. I always found it was kind of unfortunate the way things turned out for the Cutlass Red and the Cutlass Blue. I mean, at one point a week earlier, Sandy was releasing an image on Twitter of Josh Coons working on the Cutlass Blue, and we saw the Cutlass Blue in a pretty decent state. I think it was still white box or gray box. He was still nailing it down. And then all of a sudden the next week we found out, oh no, they've both been bumped for the Phoenix. Because remember that these were two ships that were originally slated to be completed by the end of 2017 and have since been shelved with an undetermined release date. And they're probably going to put them back into production around the time when they actually figure out the capturing and bounty system for the Blue and the medical system for the Red. They're probably going to put them back in. But the work had begun on these ships, so I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a medical ship to go along with this type of gameplay. I think it would be pretty terrible if there wasn't. If it was just like, oh, we've got more advanced medipacks, but we're now waiting on the ships. That would kind of suck. But in the end, you would still need UI elements. You'd still need the ship. You would still need the gameplay kind of nailed down. So it's probably still going to be a ways before we actually see the Cutlass Red, which is unfortunate, true, but then again, it would be like the Herald. It would just be another dead ship in the game waiting for its gameplay to be put in. However, I am going to say that I somewhat disagree with what CIG did in this situation. And that's because AI NPCs are already going to be part of 3.3 and then going on beyond that. So there's going to be shootouts on the surface of planets. I mean, realistically, there have been shootouts on the surfaces of planets since 3.0. There have been, you know, we've had shootouts between players and we've had people getting wounded and getting killed. And at least some form of basic medical gameplay beyond the self-heal, beyond someone just falling on the ground and then just disappearing. I think there's a reasonable call for that in the game as it is, and it's kind of the ground combat system. It's almost an extension of that, and I think a pretty necessary extension. I feel it's something that should be a little bit higher on the priority list. I understand limited resources, limited time, you can only do what you can do, and I'm, you know, so I'm not sitting there going like, they should have done this, they should have done that, but I'm just saying I feel that it should have come in a little bit sooner, or it should have been a little bit higher on the priorities, but I'm not sitting here pounding my desk demanding for it and, you know, writing a 10-page diatribe on Spectrum. But hopefully when it does get here, it'll actually turn out to be something good. Given what we got just in the, you know, the very basic implementation of mining and what we got out of that system. A little bit of some troubles, some problems in there, but overall a pretty damn good system for their first kick at the can. And I think that based on that, I would say the medical gameplay is probably going to be pretty darn good. And with the added systems and UI fixes that we're going to get between now and then, it should probably be a fairly rewarding and interesting career to pursue. And finally, you know, for years now, there has always been this kind of background talk of, you know, should players who engage in the medical profession be kind of given a quote-unquote free pass? Like, oh, everybody should leave them alone because they're just out there to help everyone, and, you know, you should never be suspicious of them at all. Do I agree with that? Yes. Yes, I do. You should never be ever suspicious of a Cutlass Red, and you should just let them do whatever they want. Don't ever scan their ship. Don't do that. Just know that they're only there to help you, 100%. I hope you enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.